Hey folks, welcome to another Worldographer 2025 video. I'm Joe Wetzel, the creator of the program, and we're not going to be showing off any major Worldographer 2025 changes, although we are going to touch on some of the smaller things as we go about this. We're going to use our Ring Lord icons in Worldographer 2025. We've got a Patreon, a long-running Patreon that's been going on for something like 6 years. And each month we put out more icons in more styles, and we've got a battle mat style, a settlement style, kind of like top down buildings, as well as isometric World Kingdom icons, and these would be our classic World Kingdom icons that you're seeing here. Although we do have them in a little bit more color than what you see there currently. But we're going to show off the Ring Lord ones, which are some that we did that are kind of based on the style from the early Lord of the Rings maps from the books, and we'll show you how to import those and how to use those in this. Convert a map in this style, for example. In fact, this map, which we'll link to you, we'll link below the video here, so you can download this as well. And give a try to what we're doing, as well as tweak the terrain, because even though we took the geographical information services data for coastlines and rivers and such, we kind of approximated our best guess for what the terrain is for each hex area. And of course, since you're averaging the terrain over a hex and so on, and you're looking at different sources to see what would be the best fit. If you've got a better feel for it, if you know that it should be forested mountains here instead of mountains, then go ahead and change it. You can download the file and you'd be able to change it as desired. And hey, send it back to us if you're confident about a particular area. Send it back to us and we can change the master. So we'll have a link to that. We'll also link to the crowdfunding campaign for Worldographer 2025. On that page will be a demo that you can download and install onto your computer so you can give it a try. It's fully enabled. All the pro features are enabled through the end of October. However, the crowdfunding only goes until October 8th. So please give it a try before then. Come on back to the crowdfunding page if you think that the software is a good fit for the way that you like to make maps, if you see the potential and so forth. The demo has, most of what we're planning to do for the 2025 version. There's a few things that we're still working on. Of course, it's an alpha, so you're going to run across some rough edges, some bugs and such. But go ahead and give it a try, and if you see the potential there, go ahead and support the crowdfunding, please. So with that out of the way, let me show you bringing in the other icon set. So if we want to bring in another icon set, we can do it in a couple of different ways. We can do this configuration folder stuff, which I have set up, where it's just a folder on your computer that you can choose show configuration folder, and it will show you where it's looking. And usually it's your users folder, documents, and then create a folder Worldographer. Don't use your program files Worldographer folder, because then that could get removed, and if you reinstall it might get removed. So you don't want to put it there. But you can change it with the change configuration folder. For example, if you don't have permissions to that default location, or if you want to move it to a Dropbox kind of thing like I've done, you can do that. And then you can do add configuration subfolder. So any folders in there, any subfolders. So you'll see. So let me hit that. You get a tree, and so in my configuration folder, I've got a folder 2018, 2019, and so forth, because we've got a Patreon as well that we do monthly, like I was saying, and we've got a number of other icon sets that we've done. So we did our Ring Lord icons in February of 2023. So I'm going to hit this now. Any folders in there, so the Ring Lord folder does have features and terrain and textures subfolders, or at least features and terrain. So we can go ahead and select that, and then it's bringing all of those additional icons back into Worldographer. It's loading them for me and setting them up, putting all the terrain in the terrain folder, putting all the features in the features folder. So if I want to just filter, but for the Ring Lord one specifically, I can just choose that option. You can also bring the icons in though through add custom terrain, add custom features, add custom textures, and this is just going to bring up a file chooser where you can select a folder, or you can select, hand select 20 files or whatever it is that you want to bring in, and then it will prompt you for how you want to categorize it, like this, as well as it now in 2025. One of the additions is that it's going to prompt you for that folder or for that classification, how you want it to, where you want it to be stored, as well as it's going to approximate a background color. As of this most recent 1.07 preview, it'll approximate a background color for that terrain, and it will also guess an elevation level. We've done another video on that, so I'm not going to go into any more detail on that. But and then you can also bring in terrain through the configuration terrain features and textures folders or dialogues rather, where they have an add row option, so you can bring in and then you can use a file chooser to pick terrain for that particular row. One of the nice things about the UI, little things about Worldographer in 2025, is we've got this separate scroll bar here where you can scroll through all your choices, but not lose your other controls on that window. Likewise with features, if I filter for Ring Lord, I can scroll through, I can slide this over a little bit, so I can give myself three per row there, and then I don't need the scroll bar. But if I remove this filter here, for example, then all of our Ring Lord icons are showing up here, and so we have this. So you can scroll through all that without losing these other controls around there. And then second nice little, or another nice little change is that you can resize your icon. So like the default actually starts at 40 pixels large, and so that's kind of small to see these. It's fine for the classics, but in this style you probably want to go bigger so you can kind of see them more easily. All right, so I'm going to focus in on Australia because it's a smaller area and I can kind of move in here a little bit. So what I can do is I can do a replace of all the terrain on the map in one fell swoop if I want to, of a particular type, by let me filter for mountains and give it that moment to catch up, and then we just need to find the plain mountains as opposed to the forested mountains. So here's our plain mountains. And I can pick one of these, and I do want to make sure that it ends in columns. So that's going to scroll off the recording area, but towards the end there's columns, and so I've got this is this is columns A. That just means that these icons are made to work with this orientation of your hexes. In many cases that doesn't matter if it's just putting the icon in the middle of the hex, but if it is using the full area of the hex like these are, then you're going to want to have the columns versus the rows orientation. You're going to want to pick the right ones. I can have similar on. This is just going to allow it to randomly pick A, B, C, or D. They end here. Okay, so if I hover over this one, you can see where it ends in full columns C. So any A, B, C, D, E, or however many I have, it's going to pick randomly from that. And then the flood fill is just going to affect all the ones that are contiguous. So I can just go ahead and do this, and it's going to change all those. And if we zoom in a little bit more, you can see that it is picking from a couple, picking a few of the different types. I can also undo that, and I can hold down Alt. And so this is a 2025 improvement, also just new in the 1.07 version though, release. And so this is, if I hold down Alt while I click the button, then it's going to go throughout the whole map, and it's going to adjust all the terrain that matches that type throughout the entire map. And so that's a nice little time saver, if you will. So I can move on to hills, and we can pull up all the hill options. And I say I want to pick, this is columns as well. So I can pick this one, for example, and just hold down Alt on this as well. Now for these other hills, there's some grass involved there, so I'm not going to hold down the Alt. I'm going to adjust these by hand a little bit once I place them. So this row, or this column, I should say, and this column as well. Now because those are supposed to be kind of grassy hills, grassland hills or something, I'm going to actually go into the features drawer. And here in features I can filter by grass, and I can pick some of these. I'm going to pick the smaller ones because I want to pick small ones that I can intersperse in throughout this this area. Now I'm just using my scroll wheel to scroll in some, and I can just pick here. Oh, I should point out that you do want to have place freely on so it doesn't anchor the grass to the center of a hex, because we are definitely trying to space this in, kind of just squeeze a little bit in here and there wherever there are gaps in the terrain. And you can overlap it a little bit too. It's not gonna not gonna be too obvious. So yeah, so that's the idea, is I could do that as well. Oh, actually I didn't want to necessarily do that for some of these, but you get the idea. I don't need to you know, I could select, for example, this one and drop it if I want to drop it, and drop this one and drop that one, for example. But if I looked back at a map of Australia, maybe I'd find that I do want that. Maybe I want that throughout the whole thing. So let's see. Let's go, and actually we're going to do something with that as well. So what I can do also is I can go to grassland here, and I can pick the grassland as terrain. And these are rows, so I need to scroll up a little bit more to get the columns. So these are columns here. And I'm going to do the, actually I want to do the lighter areas, because I do want to intersperse some of the other stuff, some shrubbery type stuff. So I'm going to hold down Alt though, and use that. And that does fill in all that terrain. Actually, let me undo, yeah, no, we'll leave it like that. And then I can go to features again, and I don't really have shrubbery that's distinct shrubbery, but I do have some cactus type stuff. So I'm going to pick these cactus type things. Again, I'm going to pick a small one, but it's going to randomly pick between these smaller batches. They don't necessarily look small to you because they're all being sized the same, but you can tell that this one has a whole lot more. In fact, if I hover over the map with it, once it's selected, you can see how this is a larger area. That's basically over a whole hex, actually. This is a small area where it's, kind of contained to a hex, but, and then this is a much smaller area. So I'm just going to pick these small ones. And because I have this similar on, it's picking between these three somewhat randomly. I think it does pick the primary one a little bit more often by default. But so now I can add in some shrubland to my grassy areas here, and you can make it as thick as you want to. So that gives you an idea of how to do that. And then let's go back to terrain. In terrain, I can go ahead and do cactus now, or I mean not cactus, desert. And here's those, those same icons that we were using before, or composites of them used that you can use for terrain, or in the list here. But if I scroll down a little bit further, we get some dunes as well, and then we get into a rocky desert type stuff, and that's actually what I wanted. So I'm going to pick this here as my rocky desert, and I'm going to just put this down in this. So those all replace that. For my hills, for my forested hills, I can pull up hills again. And here we have a bunch of forests. These are evergreen forest here. If I scroll through the list, though, we'll find our deciduous forest type stuff. And so here's those. I can have thick ones or thinner ones. I actually do think in this case I want the thicker ones. So I'm going to pick some of these thick ones here, one of the thick ones. And as long as I pick one of the thick ones, then the rest will also be thick. So we get all that. And this one was blank for some reason, but we'll just replace that there. And then mountains. So I want my forested mountains. So I'm going to pull back up the mountain stuff. And here we have forested mountains. And I'm going to keep these thick as well. And go ahead and do that. And then do we have anything? Oh, okay. We still have a little bit of grassland. And we've got a little bit of grassy hills. So let's go look for these grassland ones. Let's pick this. Those two changed, and then let's go back to hills. And we want these to be grassy hills. So we don't really have a distinct grassy hill type thing, just like with this. So what we can do is we can just do the hills. Do the hills. And then we can, well, let me do some more spaced out hills. Let's do these instead. So we get that section of hills. Then we can go in here and we can pull up grass, and here we have a little grassy section. So we can add in some extra grass to kind of fill this in and get the effect that we want. So that's that part of it. Now what I can do too, oh, I missed a couple of forests up there. Sorry about that. Let's pull up our forest then. And we wanted to go into terrain for our forest. So we could do it with these. In fact, let's do it that way instead. Let's do it the other way. So the other way that we could do this, if we wanted much more tighter control over this, we can go to forest, and we can find that blank forest. And this one here is the columns, because then this one is the rows. So I'm gonna pick this, and I'm gonna just, flood fill those. And once that's been flood filled, now I can go into features, and I have my forest here, and I have, all these things. I might even be able to just do deciduous, and that's going to filter it for just my deciduous forest stuff. Now I have some deciduous forest hills too, and so you could do it this way too. If you don't want to, it's faster to just pick terrain and just plop down terrain and have it automatically randomly pick the terrain from the different types with the flood fill. That's faster. But if you want more control to say how thick a particular section of the forest is and so forth, we'll turn this off, because you don't want to randomize it. You want it to be distinct. You want it to be specific. But I can now then, put in this here, and I can put this one in here, and I can go up here, and I can have a big forest up there if I wanted to. Now, again, I know nothing. I've never been to Australia. I'd love to go. I actually worked on a contract for the Australian government, but I have no knowledge of Australia's terrain. So, but you get the idea. You can place all these down. We can do the same thing again over here. One gotcha is that we've got, so this, because I put this one down last, that's appearing on the top, and so the tree trunks kind of don't lay over each other the proper way. You can select it and then pick that one and then push it down here underneath everything else, so it does appear in the right order. Or if I delete that, I think I might have shown this in a recent video, but in case you haven't seen that, we can go to layers, and we can select one of them, but then hit add above selected and do features, Y ordered. And again, I still haven't looked up to see if it needs to be with the ED or not on the end, but case doesn't matter. But as long as I add that in there, and if I have Y order in the name of the layer, then when I go back to features, I can pick that layer. And now when I place these down, so if I place this one, so if I place this one here down, and then I place this one here down, they are being drawn in order from looking at the center point of each of these icons and drawing the one closest to the top of the map first, and then kind of working their way down, so that, no, it's going to be too big. I just have to do a bunch of small ones here. So that even though I'm putting these in the reverse order of what I should, it does allow me, or it does draw it properly. It does draw it the way that we would want, and then I can finish it out, of course, this way too. So anyway, so that's our quick take on Australia, having no knowledge of of the terrain of Australia, having never been to Australia. Apologies to everybody in Australia for probably putting mountains where there aren't any, or vice versa. One last thing I can show you is that we do also have the functionality to do kind of drill down with your map and add more detail, and so we can do a continent scale map. Now I'm going to keep this small, so I'm going to just do a 3:1 map level for our second level here. Hit OK, and what it's doing is it's going through all the stuff that we had placed before, and this particular hex was mountains here before. This whole area was mountains, so it is putting mountains here, and it's putting in mostly mountains in that area, but it's also looking at what's the adjacent terrain around there, so that that other terrain can kind of encroach a little bit and so forth. And then up here for this, since we did this only by features, up here we would have to go in and add more features to kind of fill it in. It's only going to be doing these features, these here. It's only doing these forest features. It's just carrying them down, but it's not trying to fill them out. So it's kind of back on us to kind of go through here, and I can't put the ABC on here now, and this time it's going to kind of fill this in. And again, because it's got the y-axis or the y-ordered layer set up, it's going to do it the right way. And some of these are showing up as just plain forest with no icons on them, because it's looking at those other adjacent hexes, and it decided to pull, because these two are nearby, it decided to fill in a couple of these spots with that as well. So you can fill these in as desired, and just keep going as much as you'd like to. Or you can go back to the terrain, and you can pick forest, and find your way down to the deciduous forest and pick one of these, as long as it's in the columns orientation, and put that down. Excuse me, and put that down. Now I had flood fill on, so that's why it was doing that, but you get the idea. All right, so that is the last thing that I wanted to show you in the video. Let me zoom out some on this section of Australia. But that's at the at the what we call the continent level. We make a world level map, and then you can drill down for whatever scale it is that you want, and continue. Do you want 3 hexes across per hex in the parent, or do you want 6, or whatever number it is that you'd like, you can pick, and then you can flesh out the map. It does a first approximation, which is great for a fantasy map if you're not trying to match a known the real world location. But if you are, then you're going to want to massage things a little bit and kind of move some mountains around and replace some, and hills and so forth. All right, so that's it for this video. Again, we'll have a link to the crowdfunding page below. We'll also have a link to the original map that we were using. And I encourage you to check out the demo, and if you find that the tool is a good fit for you, please do consider making a pledge to that before October 8th. Thanks a bunch.